The HINTERKAIFECK Murders Part 2. What makes the story even more chilling is that the killer, who was never caught, seemingly stayed in the house for days after the murders. Investigators later discovered that after killing the family, the murderers would tend to the animals, eat their meals, and even sleep in the bed. The police found evidence that someone had been living in the house after the murders. The murderer had been making himself at home, burning logs in the fireplace and eating the family's food. Even more disturbing was the fact that neighbors had seen smoke coming from the chimney after the murders. The killer must have been living in the house for several days without raising suspicion. It wasn't until the maid, who was supposed to arrive the day after the murders, showed up and found the bodies that the police were called. The mystery surrounding the HINTERKAIFECK murders deepens because, despite an intense investigation and several theories, no one was ever caught or conclusively identified as the murderer. There were several suspects, including a man named Lawrence Littenbauer, a local farmer who had been romantically involved with Victoria and who stood to gain from the family's death. Some speculated that there was a second murderer, possibly someone who had been living on the property for a long time. Another theory is that the murders were the work of a stranger who had discovered the isolated farmstead and was driven by madness. To this day, no one knows the true identity of the murderer, and the HINTERKAIFECK farmstead remains one of Germany's most chilling unsolved cases. What's even more terrifying is the idea that someone was living in the house with the corpses of the family for days, quietly tending to the animals, using the family's belongings, and maybe even watching the investigators as they searched the house. The gruesome killings, the eerie isolation, and the unsettling idea of someone living among the dead still haunt those who remember the story. The farmstead itself was eventually abandoned and left to fall into ruin. In 1923, it was completely demolished, but the story of the HINTERKAIFECK murders lives on as one of the most disturbing and mysterious crimes in history. Please hit the notification bell and hit the like and subscribe.